Child is is the author of 19 Jack Reacher thrillers, including #1 New York Times bestsellers Personal, Never Go Back, A Wanted Man, The Affair, Worth Dying For, 61 Hours, Gone Tomorrow, Bad Luck and Trouble, and Nothing to Lose, as well as the short stories Not a Drill, High Heat, Second Son, and Deep Down. Stephen King has crowned Child's literally larger-than-life hero, Reacher, as the coolest continuing series character now on offer, while the Associated Press has said that Child has created an iconic character that other thriller writers try to emulate but don't come close to matching. Child's debut, Killing Floor, won both the Anthony and the Barry Awards for Best First Mystery, and the Emmy won both the Barry and Nero Awards for Best Novel. Foreign rights in the Reacher series have sold in more than 40 territories, and there are nearly 100 million copies of the Reacher novels in all formats worldwide. All titles have been optioned for major motion pictures, the first of which, Jack Reacher, was released in December 2012. A native of England and a former television director, Child lives in New York City. Make Me is Lee Child's 20th Jack Reacher novel and goes on sale September 8th from the Delacorte Press Penguin Random House. Please welcome Lee Child.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, as you heard, and you can see from the very discreet little thing on your chairs and tables that there's a new book coming in September, Make Me, which is my 20th book, which means that in September, for the 20th time, I'll be promoting, which means for the 20th year in a row, there will come a point in the evening where I say, are there any questions? I was in Australia, and I said, so, are there any questions? And a guy immediately put up his hand and said, why are you so thin? I was here in New York, and I said, are there any questions? And a woman put up her hand and said, why are you such a deceitful and dishonest man? And I said, really, am I? And she said, your photograph on the book jacket must be 30 years old. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't. It was pretty new. So I was obviously having a really bad night, but I said to her, I promise that I will have a different picture on every book. What I didn't say was that they might well be from the same historic photo session, but at least it would be a different picture. The one question that I really have sort of trouble answering is, inevitably, they always ask, how long did you know you wanted to be a writer? And the truth of that for me is really never. I really never thought about being a writer, and I'm not sure that I want to be a writer now. What I want to be is an entertainer. Ideally, I wanted to be in the Beatles. That was plan A, which I thought was a pretty solid plan, except there were three fundamental drawbacks. One was they had no vacancies. Second was I was only 9 years old. And thirdly, I have no musical talent whatsoever. But apart from that, it was, I thought, a good ambition. And having failed at it, I immediately then went into amateur theater. I started doing shows, the high school shows, which I really, really enjoyed, and then semi-pro theater. And I had a vacation job at the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford and the Birmingham Repertory Theatre where I grew up. Again, absolutely no onstage talent whatsoever, so I was very quickly relegated behind the scenes, which I actually really enjoyed. There is nothing more fun to me than the feeling of putting on a show. I loved all of that. But I was a very serious and earnest young person, like most people were back in the early 1970s, and I read this book by a British director called Peter Brook. The title of the book was The Empty Space, and he made a very compelling case that all the theater needs is a script, some actors, and an empty space in which to perform. In other words, he sort of talked me out of my job. There was no need for lighting or sound or anything like that, so I figured all right, I'll go somewhere where they do need that sort of technical stuff. So I moved to television, and I got a job at Granada Television in Britain, which was just a great job. It was at the start of a very golden era for British television drama, and actually for documentary too. And it was just impossibly glamorous for me. My first week, I was 22, very nearly 23, and the woman that was training me, I was going to replace her when she left, which made it a slightly difficult dynamic. But she invited me to lunch in the first week, said, I'm having lunch with some actors. Would you like to come? So I said, sure. So I showed up to lunch with 4 actors, Laurence Olivier, John Gielgud, Ralph Richardson, and Alec Guinness. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good introduction. Although, name dropping here, I had worked with Laurence Olivier before at the Birmingham Rep. And so I just had just the greatest time. It was the greatest job ever. Really nice people, really lovely. I had mostly 16 out of 18 years were terrific. But then one day my boss said something to me that made it just impossible for me to continue there. He said, you're fired. Which was not entirely due to personal felonies or misdemeanors, but it was one of those corporate restructurings where a light bulb moment, they suddenly figured, we can get 20-year-olds to do this for a quarter of the money, instead of these 40-year-olds with pensions and benefits and all that kind of stuff. So I was out of work, and I thought, what should I do now? And I wanted to stay, absolutely wanted to stay with that fundamental concept of having an audience to entertain. So I thought, what can I do that will entertain an audience that suits my skills and my zero savings? A lot of my more responsible colleagues, of course, had saved their money, and then they bought cameras or they bought video editing suites and became freelancers. I had saved £3.99, which in dollars is $6 was my savings. And I thought, what can I do with $6? And I thought, I know, I'll write a book. I've read some. How hard can it be? So I went out and I spent those $6 on 3 pads of paper, a pencil, an eraser, and a pencil sharpener, all of which I still have. The pencil is now very short, but it wrote the first book. And I got a 2-book contract, and I thought, okay, that's great. That is 2 years before I've got to think about another job. And now, as you've heard, it's coming up to 20 books. And I'm just now beginning to think maybe I'll never have to get another job. And hopefully I won't. And those 20 years have been even better than the TV years, and actually now even longer. I think it was July of 2013, I exceeded the amount of years I'd spent in television, so this is now the longest job I've ever had. And it has been the most fun. It has just been a great job, and I've got 3 sets of people to thank for that. Obviously readers, obviously my publishers, and nobody, no one in the world is more appreciative of his readers than I am. And nobody is more appreciative or professionally admiring of my publisher's work either. But I have to say, they're relegated really into 2nd and 3rd place, a little bit because the people I really love are the people that come in between those two, the people that link the publisher and the reader, in other words, the booksellers, who I have had just the most fun with over these 20 years, the nicest people. From the very biggest chains to the very smallest independents. And I'm acutely aware that especially in those early years, nobody walked out of a store with my book for any other reason than the enthusiasm and goodwill of the bookseller, be it big and corporate with the way they lay out the store, or small and personal with hand-selling my stuff. Obviously, nobody would have bought my book unless somebody told them to. So I owe a tremendous debt to booksellers. They created my career. And actually, they create everybody's career. And I hope that they stick around for a long time and create plenty more careers, because being British, this is the thing that you've got to understand about me. I come from Europe. I have no work ethic. And therefore, my ultimate goal has always been to retire. And when I retire, I want plenty of good things to read. So please keep on doing what you do and make sure there are plenty of healthy careers for me to enjoy when I'm lying on a beach somewhere doing absolutely nothing, which is a vision, at this time of the morning, is a vision of just unparalleled temptation. So thank you very much.
Funding for Bookview Now is provided by the Wincote Foundation.